I'll confess to you, there's really only one reason couples see me, and it's so simple. They actually want to be together, and they're not. They're not. And I don't know if you remember, I think it was Robin Williams' famous quote, "I used to think the worst thing in the world was being alone." It's not. The worst thing in the world is being with someone who makes you feel alone.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Consult a qualified professional for your needs. Views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and not necessarily those of Meet Your Mental Helper Podcast LLC or its affiliates. We are not responsible for actions taken based on this content.
Hi, I'm Jim Weisbecker. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Arizona, Colorado, Florida, and Ohio. The reason I started the Meet Your Mental Helper podcast is kind of selfish in a way because I just love talking shop with colleagues. But I also think the world needs to know about some of these people. And the reason I say that is I'm amazed at how much they know. And I think to myself, they should be on a podcast, but they're not celebrities. They're just everyday counselors, therapists, coaches, psychologists that work in our communities and grind it out to help us heal and to help us grow. So let's meet today's mental helper. Welcome to Meet Your Mental Helper. We're pleased to have John Weiman speak to us about the secret of making our relationships and marriages work. John is nationally recognized as one of the highest ranked marriage counselors in the country. After finishing his training at New York University, he began to work closely with Dr. James Masterson, the Masterson of the Masterson Institute, who was known throughout the world for his work with narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. He worked for 9 years at a long-term psychiatric hospital named High Point Hospital in Rye Brook, New York. After 9 years, due to family responsibilities, he left the field for 20 years. After his divorce, mother's death, and a friend's death, he began to abuse alcohol. This came to a head 16 years ago when he walked into a hospital with stomach pain. After 4 hours of testing, they told him he was in complete liver failure, and if he continued his behavior, he would be dead in 2 months. While dedicating himself to his health, he decided to return to the field of his dreams, psychology. He enrolled in the Gottman Institute, which is world-renowned for its research on what makes and breaks relationships. The Gottmans could predict with 95% accuracy what couples would thrive and what couples wouldn't. John worked with over 3,000 couples and has created a model for sessions that is not time limited. Typically, he meets with couples around 3 hours, and the focus is on walking out of the session better than they walked in. He believes the couples get further faster. In his experience, couples don't have the patience to meet once a week for an hour or 3 or 4 months, or for 3 or 4 months. We look forward to speaking with John today. Welcome to Meet Your Mental Helper, John.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I was really looking forward to this.
Great. And I will also post all of the links underneath this podcast on how to reach out and find John, talk to him. But where are you doing what you do now, John?
I am right outside Baltimore, Maryland, right on the Chesapeake Bay, basically.
Okay.
So I used to do sessions outside at sunset, and it was amazing how much they got along. They're staring at the sunset, but how smart I was.
Yeah.
Sounds
like a beautiful setting.
Oh, it is. It is. It was, my wife honored my dream to live on the water. And also, it's interesting, when I completed my training at the Gottman Institute, the number one thing you can do for your marriage is honor your partner's dream. And I realized after I completed the training, I was like, oh no, I can't afford an office. And so I went over to her house. We were dating. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I can't believe how stupid I was. I know me. I'm not disciplined enough. You know, I'm not going to save the money. I just spent everything and I'm not going to be able to do this. And she says to me, well, why don't you just use my living room? I'm like, what? She goes, yeah, just use my living room. And I grew up in New York, so the New York in me came out, and I said, do you realize you're going to have people coming in your house that you don't know and they don't like each other? That's crazy. And she said, never forget it. She said, well, we'll put up 2 doors to make it private for you so you can work. She was going to remodel part of her house. We're dating. And
Wow.
yeah, and I said, why would you do that? And I love her for it. She said, well, you said it was your dream. I want you to have your dream. And
Wow.
that
That's
was
that
15 years ago.
that
Yeah.
hit that hits right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So you had you know what we were talking about it. You were drinking, was it 6, or you've been
I've been
sober
so,
16?
yeah, 16 years.
So, and you kind of had a moment of life or death. Tell
Yeah.
us about that.
Well, I, I basically used drinking to prevent myself from being alone. I started drinking in 7th grade. And the reason I did was, I'll never forget it. I was best friends with Mark Lavielle and Mike Morrissey through elementary school. We walked to school together every day. 2 weeks before the end of school, they come up to me and said, we can't be friends with you anymore because we like girls and you're not cool enough to. And walked away from me and left me alone. That summer was horrible. So first Friday night of junior high, I decided there was a bonfire for the football game, and I decided I'll show them. I was painfully shy. I went into my parents' liquor cabinet and poured every liquor in a bottle with a little soda, drank it, got drunk, and talked to every girl at the bonfire. I made a fool of myself. So, and fast forward to this alone theme. My parents were going through a rough divorce. No one came to my high school graduation. I didn't even go to
Wow.
my college graduation because of the alone thing. I got drunk after my high school graduation with my friends because of alone. Fast forward to after my divorce, I was on the board of the rec council here, and there were probably, I knew 1,000 families. So when the news of my divorce came out, the wives said to their husbands, stay away from John. He's single now. The husband said to the wives, stay away from John. He's single now. We don't want any part of this. And I was alone, 1,000 families. So where do you meet people? In a bar.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even like beer. I remember like it was yesterday. Drink the first one, John. Just drink the first one down. It'll get better. And I drank pitchers of beer. And the reason I drank pitchers was I would see you in there, Jim. And I'd say, hey, Jim, come on over. Come on over. I got a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember literally every time I put my hand on the door of the bar, I thought, I hope I meet the person in here tonight that gets me out of here. I drank to prevent myself from being alone. That's all it was about. And lo and behold, and it's embarrassing to say this, but my mother was a therapist. My dad was a doctor. While drinking, my eyes were yellow. I was putting Visine in them. I knew cirrhosis was staring me in the mirror. And I'll never forget one day I was putting the Visine in and saying, John, this is bad. This is bad. And I was like, no, I can't stay in my apartment alone. I can't do it. I couldn't be alone. And so when I finally, I had a stomach ache and stopped, the doctor said, you keep doing what you're doing, you'll be dead in 2 months. And I stopped immediately. And what I did was, you may laugh at this. There's a website called vacationstogo.com. And I'm alone in my life. And I booked a cruise 4 days, 3 nights. And I went on the ship and I literally did not speak to anyone.
Huh.
I stood at the front of the ship for basically 16 hours a day and just thought, what just happened in my life? And how did I get here? And what do I want to do going forward? And my mom, I was a recreational therapist, read in a long term psych hospital. My mom was crushed when I left this field. Um, and my mom also, as a side note, was one of the original Nike posters right there that hangs in
Oh,
Nike's
wow.
lobby.
I'll
So,
be darned.
she said, she was really crushed when I left this field. And so I thought, you know what? I want to honor my mom and go back into it. And so I went back to become a certified life coach. And I enrolled in the Gottman method, where I'm trained in the highest level you can be without a PhD. So, and life is good. I and my wife again honored my dream to be in this field, and I love it. I work 7 days a week. I work, I don't know, till 10 o'clock at night. Um, and I absolutely, I say I work, but I don't, because I love what I do.
Hmm.
Absolutely love it. And um it's so I just last night I had a couple. They were separated. The guy was drinking too much. Life was pretty dark. They had 3 kids, and um I mean, most of the session it was laughter. It was great to see them be a couple again. I saw the transformation using a lot of the Gottman tools, and it was so nice to see them. I mean, that makes it all worth it. That's not work, Jim. That's
Hmm.
that's reward. So
Yeah, I think, a lot of people talk about self care. You have to get away from work. But if you really love your work, it's not
you're
a
right.
necessary thing to have. That is your self care in some instances. I know that sounds controversial, but if you really are passionate and love what you do, um, why not? Why not work 12 hours a day?
Yeah, exactly. And I got to tell you, to like, this guy's not drinking anymore. And Jim, I've always said, if I can get one person, one, just one, and I've got several, to not go down the road I did, then it's a success. I mean,
Yeah, I
I could,
love that.
yeah, I
Hmm.
can tell you that I do public speaking. People have no idea the medical consequences of alcohol abuse.
Hmm.
I don't know if you know. Do you know what ascites is?
No, I'm not familiar with the term.
Okay, ascites is basically what happens is, because the liver's cirrhotic, scar tissue, when the blood goes through to, get cleaned, it can't go through because of scar tissue. So what the cells do is squeeze out the fluid, and it goes, you look pregnant.
Okay.
And you have literally, I had 4,000 pounds, and that number is correct, of fluid drained from my body. I had 20 liters drained every 2 weeks.
Wow.
Long time. And a lot of in the fluid was protein. It was tough to walk to my car. These are things people don't know about. Hepatic encephalopathy, when the blood can't get through the liver and, clean itself, goes to the brain. Hepatic encephalopathy, you hallucinate and don't know it. One time I was talking to my sister, we're having a great conversation. And Jim, you'd never believe who knocked on my door and came in. Abraham Lincoln.
Nice.
And I'm like, Patrice, Abe's here. Hey, Abe, that looks good. And she's like, John, what are you talking about? Like, Abraham Lincoln's here. And I was psychotic.
Hmm.
So, and you have too much information for you. You have to take this medicine called lactulose 3 times a day. It's X-Lax times 10,
Wow.
because you have to detox. You have to get everything out of your body, or it'll go to your brain.
Flush everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are some of the things, the medical consequences that people don't know about.
When I was getting my master's in counseling, uh, the substance classes, I had several of them, substance use classes. And I always remember, not that meth or, cocaine or anything's good for you, but I always remember thinking alcohol, everything from higher rates of cancer, heart disease, brain, like you said, everything. Just remember thinking alcohol is the most destructive of any substance as far as not being able to return from it.
Absolutely. I stopped drinking 16, 17 years ago. I'm still paying the price. I have neuropathy. I don't know if you know what that is. I have pain in my feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my transplant over 5 years ago. You still pay the price for alcohol abuse.
And you had a liver
I
transplant.
had a liver transplant. Yeah.
And what percentage of those are successful? Do you know?
Well, I can tell you this. First thing is, I saw 15 people die having what I had. I'm the only one alive of the people I know. And the transplant process is difficult in that basically what I had to do was to get an interview, just an interview. I'm sick. I have cirrhosis. For 2 years, every so often, and me not knowing when, my doctor would call me and say, John, go pee in a cup. We need to test you. And if I failed one test, I wouldn't have a transplant. So after 2 years, I finally got an interview at Penn. And here's the way the transplant world, the harsh reality of how it works. If they think you're going to die, you're not going to be, you're not going to make it in any way, or they're not going to list you, because failed transplants go against the hospital, for example, and it's no insult to Hopkins here. Hopkins was on probation at the time of mine. I couldn't get an interview from them. And the reason there were failed transplants was they had too many. Once you were listed, if you get hit, and I'm exaggerating, but it's true, if you get hit by a bus, that's a failed transplant. They have to make sure you're going to live. And the reason you could get hit by a bus is hepatic encephalopathy.
So they're looking for people with the best chance of survival.
Yeah.
Kind of almost like triage. Treat the people that might survive first. The ones that are too far gone, let them go.
Well, yeah, because an incredible moment, Dr. Shaked, I met with 12 doctors. And Dr. Shaked, chairman of transplant surgery, incredible moment, Jim, says to me, John, you messed up your liver. Why should we give you one?
Wow.
And
that's a sobering question.
Oh, yeah.
No pun intended, but
no question. And I said to him, Dr. Shaked, I'll tell you why. Because I guarantee you, I am going to make it to that table. I don't care what it takes. There is no doubt in my mind I'm going to make it to that table. After that, it's your turn. You have to do the rest. And as a tribute to him, I may have seen in the 10, 12 years I waited for transplant, I may have seen him a total of 4 hours. I'm on the stretcher outside the operating room before my transplant. And Shaked comes walking by, smile on his face. He says, hey, John, you ready? And I said, yeah, Dr. Shaked, you remember what I said? He goes, yeah, I remember, John. It's my turn now. I'm like, oh, my God, this is going to be easy. So, and it was 24 hours of surgery.
Wow.
And it was an amazing experience. I will share with you on that. There was probably 30 people in the operating room, and the surgeons aren't there yet. So they, they're the rock stars. They're not there. And so I get rolled in. They're like, all right, John, what song do what music you want to hear? And I'm like, Thunder Road by Bruce Springsteen. Literally The entire team were singing this song. Thunder Road ended, and then they said, "What next, John? What next?" And I said, "Born to Run." And I broke down in tears. And the reason I did was we talked about alone. My senior quote in high school was, "Baby, this town rips the bones from your back. It's a death trap. It's a suicide rap. We got to get out while we're young, because tramps like us, we were born to run." That was my senior quote, and no one caught it in my family. And that's when my drinking really began. It reminded me of a drinking moment. I just broke down in tears. So it was incredibly painful, but it was it was a connection to, that's how I got on this table right here, John. So it was amazing. So transplant was great though.
Yeah, that is really something. 30 people in the room,
Yeah.
24 hours of surgery,
Yeah.
and it worked.
Yeah. Oh,
Best of all.
and yes. And by the way, they found cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They found cancer, and they said, "John, you have to get tested. We think we got it all. You have to get tested every 3 months for 5 years."
Mm.
And June 1st, 2025. Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
great. Great
Oh,
month.
that's awesome. So from there, how did we end up in marriage and relationships?
Well, when I was on that boat, I thought, I messed up my marriage. And I'll tell you what I did was, and I share this with couples. I basically, in my 14-year marriage, I lied every day. Every day I lied. I always said what she wanted to hear instead of what I truly thought. And I'll never forget, one of the big ones was working with Masterson. I'm a recreational therapist. And one day my wife says to me, we lived in Greenwich, Connecticut. She goes, "We can't afford to live here, and you got to go get a real job." In my head, I thought, what? What are you, nuts? Can't you see? I want to go for my PhD, be working at the Masterson Institute, retired at 50. What are you talking about? We'll be set for life. That's what was in my head. What came out of my mouth was, "Okay." And I gave up the dream and left the field. And the reason I did, and the importance of that poster behind me, is my dad basically left my mom, and she was homeless for a while, to hook up with, marry his secretary. So I thought, I'm 22 years old. I thought, just be the opposite of dad, be the opposite of dad. Whatever she wants, do. Prove to yourself that you're better than dad. So that's why I lied every single day. And, but again, after that divorce and going on the ship, because my mom said something to me when I was working at High Point, and she said, "John, you have a gift." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "You see people." And I didn't really understand. I never got what she meant until I started my practice. One of the things I encourage couples to do is hear it through your partner's eyes, not yours. And you see a completely different picture of, if there's complaining or whatever. She feels unimportant. She feels, like not heard, and really. So, again, I decided to go back into the field and found the Gottman Institute, and I'm very biased. I think they're the best. And the reason I think they're the best, and I'll say this controversially, um, everything I was trained in, Jim, I think it's nonsense. I think it's all nonsense. Accept me for who I am. And here's the key: until I do it myself. And in my marriage, when I do it myself, 100% of the time, it works. I absolutely love the Sound Relationship House.
Mhm.
Ironically, one of the things is honoring your partner's dream, which is why we're talking. So,
Right. You know, I was working for a clinic once, and they really begged me to do couples counseling, and I said, "Okay, I'll try it." And I did, I started some EFT, which, they've got a lot of good studies, and I just realized, it's doing okay, but I don't wanna just do okay, and so I do one-on-one counseling, mostly, trauma-related stuff, but
Mhm.
when I have somebody come in that says, "My wife and I are gonna be seeking we're thinking about, or my partner and I, whatever, I always recommend to them. I have actually a template I just send out to them. I go, and one is the Gottman. I have a link to the Gottman Institute, and I have a link to the EFT site as well. And I tell them these two are empirically the most studied and the most successful, and find someone trained in it, not someone that took a 2 hour course. Find someone that has the certification, whatnot. So I'm not super familiar with Gottman, but I am familiar with the studies and results that show it works.
It's amazing, and I'm curious. I want to ask you, as we talked about a little bit. Give me national recognition, created this session model. I don't
Hmm.
do the hour thing.
Hmm.
Typically they go about 3 hours. If you want to set the record, it's 4 hours, 45 minutes. I don't.
Wow.
Yeah. And in between sessions, either person can call me anytime they want. If we talk for an
Hmm.
hour, it's included. And what I'm fascinated with someone like you is, how do you do the hour session?
Hmm.
Oh, time's up. I was fascinated.
Yeah. And someday I think I'd like to transition to that. That's just something that is ideal, but I do take insurance. And so, what I would say to you on that, John, for example, I do a lot of EMDR. I'm
Mhm.
EMDR certified. So, um, there has to be some structure, and you got to get to it.
Yeah,
And you also have to be able to disconnect and get people back to a stable baseline at around that 10 minutes to the hour
sure.
mark.
Yeah,
But it is what it is. That's how it's set up. Even 90-minute sessions I would prefer if I could.
right.
You know,
Insurance
e-
won't.
even
Yeah.
even 90. But that's I think that's a great system. So how do couples come to you or find you?
Okay. Well, typically, well, one of the things is, and I hope I'm answering this. Gottman has found it takes 6 years of problems. Pick up the phone and make the call. Hey, we need help. They find me, a lot of his referral. A lot is through Google. They read my reviews. That by far is people. On Google, I think I have 55 five-star reviews. This app, Thumbtack, I have 200 five-star reviews. And it's people truly, when they read the reviews, they're like, John, when can we book? And typically, what I do is I speak to each of them individually first, probably for half hour or so. And I strongly believe, if you don't feel comfortable with who you're working with, you're wasting your time and your money. So I want to make sure that they each, they have a phone call. Hey, what do you think of John? I like John. John was good. I felt comfortable talking to him. So, but a lot of referral, reputation, Google, my website. There's all my reviews on my website, and
Mhm.
people um, they like the transparency. And authenticity. Uh, they prefer that. Um,
Do you ever have a situation where you go, "I don't think this is a good fit?"
no, And here's why. I actually, honestly, last night I spoke to someone and I honestly thought that for the first time. I have not spoke to his wife yet, but one of the areas of the Gottman method is the positive perspective. And I'm sitting here going, you know what? The positive thing is if he can buy in, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And I have never told a couple that you should get divorced. That's their decision. And I do say, hey, if you can look in the mirror and say, hey, I did everything I could, and the person staring back at you says, yeah, you have, you'll be fine. And I encourage couples, the best gift you can give your children is a good marriage. They're watching everything you do. And the second best gift is a good divorce. So, either one, if, I have had couples come to me and they're like, John, we can't do it. So, how do we plan for divorce? It's interesting when I've had couples decide to divorce and we've met to just, determine how it's going to go. What's interesting about it is they've then gone to lawyers and whatever, $50,000 later, they came up with the same solution we did. So there's something called collaborative divorce. I work with a collaborative divorce lawyer and to do that. So, but it's no, I've never. I believe in the mirror. You have to be able to do. You have to be able to say, "Hey, I did everything."
Is there a particular pattern you see most with couples that are struggling?
Yes, Gottman talks about 4 behaviors that predict divorce at a rate of 94%. They are criticism. If one of you is going to be critical, the other one's going to be defensive. Contempt, which actually has an effect on the woman's immune system. And the last one is called stonewalling, which I believe 85 or 89% of men, we just shut down. By far, the number one problem I have in my practice is the criticism defense stance. And Gottman talks about, and it's so important, criticism. Say it in a way it can be heard. And the reason I'm such a fan of that is my wife and I ended up in therapy one time because she was late all the time. And you're late again. You never do what you say you're going to do. You're always late. Criticism. She was defensive. There was traffic. There was this. So I was about 2 years into my practice and she was late. And I thought, John, you're such a hypocrite. You tell couples to say it in a way it can be heard. You don't do it yourself. So I thought, I'm going to try it. And she comes home one day, as you know, my health issues I had. She comes home one day and I say to her, honey, when you come home on time, I don't worry. She's a landscape architect. I don't worry that you got into a car, hurt at a job site. I don't worry that you got into a car accident on the way home because with my health, I don't know how I'd live without you. So I really worry when you're late. She gave the perfect answer. She was not defensive. Said, I know I'm late. I got distracted. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you worry like that. How about I text you and I'm on my way home? I'll be home in 25 minutes. I'm like, cool. Jim, that fight was every day 10 years ago. You want to see the text from yesterday?
Nice.
So, I mean, and it's as simple as Gottman says it so well, masters and disasters. So if we're partners or whatever, and I say to you, you never do the dishes. You say, John, that's critical. Masters. Jim, you're right. I'm sorry. That was really bad. Jim, when you do the dishes, I really appreciate it because it makes me feel like we're in this together and we're partners. I want
Yeah.
a better partner for you. So
it reminds me of a handout I got when I was first doing like my practicum. And it was, and you're looking for all these resources. And it was to this day, I use it. It's start your sentences with I feel versus you.
Yes.
Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
always tell people if you go you, it's like pointing the finger, and then the other person's like, oh, back off.
Yes.
Back.
Yeah.
I feel, and I was in the car with my daughter. I have a couple daughters, so and she was in a mood, and I was always saying, "You got a bad attitude, or what's going?" So one time I said, "I feel like you're being really quiet, or something," and I never. Boom! It just changed the dynamic like that.
Yeah.
Next
Wow.
thing you know, she's talking, she's doing things. And it's hard. That's a hard one to do. Because
Absolutely.
you got to stop and think. It's not a reflex so much.
Well, Gottman talks about emotional muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
That emotional muscle memory to, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's really, truly, and in our world and showing our age, I'm a big fan of separation, individuation. How we, individuate into a healthy self.
Mm-hmm.
You're familiar with the term?
I think I know where you're going with it.
I'm showing my age, but
Individual. Yeah, I'm not.
separation, individuation, up to 16 months, a child doesn't even know they're a different person than the mother.
Okay.
You go to elementary school, you're a different person in elementary school than you are at home. High school, college, jobs, you're constantly individuating. Well, the toughest people to individuate from is our parents. Now, Jim, does it really, because of my parents' conflict and fighting and his infidelity, my mom drank too much. Does it really surprise you that I had a liver transplant? I handled things the same way. I didn't individuate in the way I handle problems. So, individuating. Today, I've individuated. I walk every morning 5 miles. That's my drinking. I like to say,
Mm-hmm. A healthy
yes,
one.
a healthy perspective, and
Mm-hmm.
how we individuate is. I mean, it's amazing how many patterns are repeated that we're not even aware of.
So true. I often tell clients who say, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, I'm taking this substance or I'm drinking this amount. I always say, well, that's your coping skill. It's not a helpful one, but you are coping. We just need to, you need to get to a healthy coping
Yes,
mechanism.
yes, exactly. I like to say for shock value, I still drink every day. My drinking is walking. And you said it perfectly. It's a lot healthier coping. I love it. So how we choose to, individuate into that behavior.
Yeah. And there's a lot of research now too, something you mentioned about your parents. There's a lot of prominent research now showing that personality traits are genetically passed on as well. They've done studies with twins, separated for years.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only do we have that environment, but some of it is genetically coded too.
Oh, absolutely. And I literally during a podcast have never shared this with anyone. When I do an intake with a couple, I ask them 4 questions to get to know them a little bit. And question 2 is a separation individuation question. And that question is, growing up the way you did, mom and dad together or not, doesn't matter. It's kind of like watching Netflix of how you think a marriage is supposed to be. And we all bring something from that negatively affects your marriage. I don't need to hear about mom and dad right now. Own it. What did you bring that has negatively affected your marriage? Because it's a huge thing. And I mean, very honestly, that shutting down thing, my dad did that. He shut down. At the time of his death, he didn't talk to any of his 5 children. So this, I shut down, and how does it then I ask, how does it negatively affect the marriage? Not your partner. My shutting down creates distance in the marriage. So how do it's a huge question. Um,
Mhm.
when they hear their answer, they're like, "Oh, wow." So it's pretty cool, but
Mhm.
excuse me, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, you mentioned your mother was a therapist,
Yes.
and that influenced you,
Yeah, yeah, really did.
but you also had to have your own interest in it.
Yes, I did. I did, and, I loved, what happened was I took a year off from college, and my parents were like, "Well, if you're gonna take a year off, you gotta work." So I found this job at this adolescent psych hospital, and I was originally a mental health worker, and then got promoted to recreational therapist, and I was just honestly intrigued by, as I said, the pain of adolescence, and how could I learn about it? And Masterson was so helpful in the way I got that job, worked closely with him. Are you familiar with the name?
I'm familiar with the name, yes.
He worked with narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder, and
Mhm.
um, I'm telling my mom Masterson's coming to teach and work at the hospital, and she says, "Oh, you know him." Like, "Mom, I'm going to school full time, working part time, and I'm engaged. I'm not hitting the books like I should." And
Mhm.
mm, she says, "No, you know him." I'm like, "Mom, I don't." And she said, "All right, who are your friends in elementary school?" I'm like, "Mom, I'm not a little kid anymore. Come on, just tell me who this is." She goes, "No, just name your friends that you remember from high school." And so Mark, Mike, Jimmy, and she goes, "Jimmy, that's his father, Masterson." I
Oh,
went to
wow.
school with his kid, so my mom had called him, and first day, he was lecturing New York traffic. I was 10 minutes late, and I walked in, and everyone looked at me like, "Are you not showing up late at New York traffic?" And Masterson stops and goes, "John Weiman, how are you?" And I said, "I'm good, Dr. Masterson. How you doing?" And he said, "Good. Let's get a cup of coffee after." And we did. And he said, "Hey, while I'm here, how'd you like to intern for me?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Hmm.
I learned a ton from him. And
Yeah.
probably one of the most impactful things he ever said to me is, it's going to sound insulting, but it's so true, is, "You got to realize, John, it's 6 months before they stop lying. And it's not you went to one grocery store when you went to another. It's the stuff you really struggle to admit to yourself." And I'll never forget my walking. When I was diagnosed, people were like, "Wait, you just stopped drinking? You didn't go to rehab or therapy?" "No, didn't want to die." That was a lie I told myself for 15 years. And the truth was, well, walking one day, I was like, why was that so easy? What happened there? And I realized, I literally, when I first thought that, "Oh God, I don't want to die," I saw myself in a bed dying in pain. And I was like, "Ooh, that pain looks bad. I do not want that pain. No." And I looked at my life, and I played football, and I was very fast, because if I could avoid that pain of getting hit, I did.
Mhm.
Divorce, I didn't even have a lawyer, because the pain of conflict from my parents' divorce, 5 years, was terrible. So I'm like, I want to avoid that pain. So I looked at, the truth was, it was about pain. That's what made it so easy. And when, that was such an impactful line to me, 6 months before they stopped lying. It takes a lot of courage to find your truth.
Mhm.
And when you do, you feel better. So interesting. I have so much respect for what, and so lucky to have worked with him.
Yeah. I work a lot with attachment and the concept of self. And I think that's really prevalent. When you find your truth, you have a greater sense of that self, you know.
Yeah.
And when you have that sense of self, you're closer to freedom, whatever it is.
Absolutely. And, in terms of my sense of self, um, I always thought I come from this Princeton family. My oldest brother and sister went to Princeton. My dad went to Princeton, and I didn't even apply. I was like, there's no chance, no chance. I'll save the $50 application fee. No way. And I always saw myself as the loser among us. My sense of self was poor, low self-esteem. And I'll never forget my Princeton brother and sister, a year apart, we got together. As I said, we live on the water, and we took them on the boat separate. And we're talking, and they didn't even know they did this. They said, John, if mom were alive today, she'd be prouder of you than any of us. And that literally didn't know they said it. They both said it. And I finally, got this sense of self, a positive sense of self. And you said it perfectly. It's freedom. It's, freedom. And again, that's why I say to couples, if you can look in the mirror and say, hey, I did everything I could. The mirror says, yeah.
One of the things I learned when I took Sue Johnson's training on the emotionally focused therapy was she pointed out that, and she recently passed, I guess, but
Yeah.
she pointed out that when couples have a safe attachment with each other, each one of their selves is greater and more healed. In other words, your sense of self is greater when you're safely connected to another person than when you're just out there lone wolfing it. not that you can't get a sense of self being single or whatever, but that always struck me that people in a healthy relationship have a greater sense of their own self.
And that's so true. And your partner allowing you to feel safe enough to express it. And I'm a fan of Brene Brown, and, the courage to be vulnerable. And again, in terms of low self-esteem, one time, and my wife did an amazing job of making me feel, my sense of self improving. One time I said to her, dealing so much with infidelity, I said to her, I think if I ever cheated on you, I don't think I could do the work to save us. And she's like, what are you trying to tell me? I'm like, no, not that. She goes, what are you trying to tell me? I said, I'm just telling you, I don't think I could do the work. And she said, oh, come on, John, you've worked with like 1,000 couples with infidelity. You would know exactly what to do. I said, you're not hearing me. And she said, what are you trying to tell me? And I said, I had the courage to say it, poor sense of self. I said, I haven't done the work in my whole entire life. And she's like, what? She goes, yeah, and I said, yeah, I haven't done the work. She says, what are you talking about? And I said, I grew up in this Princeton family. I went to this super elite private school, this place called the Hill School. All I had to do was do my homework and go to Princeton. That's it. I didn't do my homework. I decided, I played football. And also 97% of the school got a high every day. You know what I learned from my Hill School education, Jim? One thing, 28 grams in an ounce. So but I played football, and I thought that's the way I'm going to go to college. And I got recruited by Duke and North Carolina. They're 10 miles apart. I didn't even visit Duke on my trip, because I knew they were tougher academically. I go to North Carolina and I don't play. I don't dress. Like, hell with this, I'm out of here. And I say, I'm going to work out every day and I'll go to South Carolina. I'll come back and I'll kick their butt.
Mhm.
I didn't work out one day. I didn't even go to tryouts at South Carolina. So, Sherry, I'm telling you, I couldn't do the work. And she was amazing. Vulnerability, the courage to be vulnerable, me telling her that. If she came downstairs the next day and saw dishes in the sink and said, oh, God, you're right. You don't do the work. Look at that. I'd never be vulnerable again. But what she said was, John, you have done the work. Look at your liver transplant. You saw 15 people die having what you had. You know, you did the work. Look at the way you run your practice. Now, Jim, I've been doing this, I don't know, 15 years or so. You know, I've never taken a day off.
Really?
Never. I work 7 days a week. The morning of my transplant, I talked to a couple. I didn't have a session, but I talked to. They were like, "Hey, good luck, John." The day
That's
after,
hardcore.
yeah.
Hardcore.
Well, it was them. And one of the things in the Gottman world I love, absolutely love, is a positive perspective. I had a
Mhm.
stroke. I was on life support for 5 days. 5 days. And talk about family dysfunction. When I finally woke up, one family member came to see me and 25 couples that I work with came to ICU.
Wow.
And positive perspective, I literally thought, surprises are good. Disappointments don't matter. Surprises. I smile and I think about that. That was such a good moment. And one of the things I do share with couples is this stroke I had, 5 days life support. They never knew whether I was going to wake up again or not. And when I opened my eyes, there was Sherry holding my hand. And I asked couples, if what happened to me happened to you, do you think he or she would be there holding your hand? And it's amazing when they say yes. Some of them say, hey, I don't know. Well, now I know why you're here. I mean, this is
Mhm.
simple thing, but being there for someone and safe enough, it's huge.
Mhm.
So you do, my wife, when I said this, she really improved my sense of self,
Mhm.
gave me freedom and peace to have the courage to say anything in terms of vulnerability. Neat stuff.
Yeah, for sure. What drew you to Gottman? Of all the there's things out there. And as I said earlier, they're one of the empirically best. What drew you to that?
Well, here we go. Truth. That was the first thing I read and I liked it.
Just felt it.
I felt it. And as I'm thinking right now, I didn't do the work. I've read other stuff, but now I'm so focused on Gottman. I'm like, no, I like this. I
Mhm.
believe in it. So, it was the first one I looked into.
But I
Uh,
think there's a lot too, you know, when you see something and you go, this just makes sense.
yeah.
Right. Like I was listening to a football coach the other day talking about he had to hire an assistant coach. And he said, after I talked to this one guy, I canceled the other three. I just knew he was the guy. And I think sometimes you can feel that in your body, in your heart. I do a lot of heart math. And I think, some people might go, well, why didn't you interview the rest? But sometimes you just know.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's one of the things I'm most proud of in my life. When I was interviewed for my transplant, um, had said to me, Chairman of transplant, he said, John, we normally take 6 months to make a decision to whether to accept you or not. But as you were talking, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I was looking around the room. And this has never happened. Literally everyone in the room nodded, yes, we want you. So you are
Hmm.
accepted. We don't have to wait the 6 months. You are accepted.
Wow.
And the proud moment. Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
and encouragement them, and I'll never forget, and improving my sense of self. My neurotic sister decides to have her husband, Princeton guy, go with me on the interview. And we're sitting outside waiting to go in, and Jim was he ran all of sales and marketing for Condé Nast. He was a superstar, and so we're sitting out there, and he says to me, "So, John, you got your notes? You ready? You ready?" And I said, "No, I don't have any notes." I'm like, he's like, "What? How are you prepared?" I said, "I'm just going to speak from the heart." And he said, "Okay, well, if you need help, I'll chime in." And I'm like, "No, and that's what I did, the authentic speaking from the heart, and it worked.
Uh-huh.
No, I didn't have the notes thing. So it was a really cool moment. It's something, something I'm most proud of, that,
I once in a while when I have to talk to people or a group, I never I never make any notes. And I know that goes against everything, but I'm more stressed if I have to look at bullet points because not that I have a photographic memory, but I just talk. I go, I know where just like today. I mean, yes, this is our first time meeting and it's great, but, sometimes it's just worse if you have to look at something. Now, some
that
people live by it, and I'm not saying it's wrong.
right. I can't do that. And I was like, and I always tell people, and ask anything you want. And again, individuation. I was never like that before. I kept everything inside. Uh, Literally, while I was getting divorced, friends, no one knew for 5 years. It was incredible. I mean, no one knew. And again, talk about separating and individuating. My parents' divorce, I repeat it. The same thing happened first. None of my friends knew for 5 years that my parents were divorced. And then when I get divorced, I do the same thing. So
Mhm.
now I ask anything you want. I like to be a fan of, I call it Ed Sheeran. I like to think out loud.
Mhm.
Uh, so,
There's a
but
lot to be
yeah,
said for that.
yeah,
We were talking at the beginning about recognizing your partner's dreams. Um,
yeah.
and so my wife's an author. She's been writing since she was a little girl. And when you're writing unlike the movies, you, where they're going to lunch with their agent and they're begging them for a new book. It's not really reality.
Hmm.
But I always encouraged her. I said, whatever you need to do. She's flying across the country for a seminar here in a month or so. I said, do it. I don't have to go. I've always encouraged her to do it, and she finally got traditionally published. But and in fairness, I would say she's been there way more for me than I have for her. So if she watches this, I'll get some brownie points. But um, you mentioned not recognizing the dreams causes disconnection. How do you see that show up?
Okay. Well, I'll confess to you, because of the dream, I'm a little pro woman. And here's why. And you kind of demonstrated
Well,
it.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a woman. So,
Yeah. But in my sessions, usually to get to know them, I ask the woman, "Hey, do you know your husband's dream? What's his dream?" Typically, they know it and do a pretty good job honoring. When I go to the man and I say, "Hey, what's your wife's dream?" He says, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know what her dream is." So I go to the woman, and this crushes me, Jim. She said, "John, give me a break. I gave that up years ago. I don't have one."
Mhm.
And
oh,
it's
I hear this in therapy all the time.
yeah, and it's
Mhm.
so important to honor the dream. And it breaks my heart when I hear that. Um, because it's everything. I mean, my wife, her dream, she went through a business divorce. She's a landscape architect, and so she had to start over. So I dropped everything to help her get set up in her business, and she's doing real well today. Another Gottman term, rituals of connection. The average couple spends 35 minutes a week talking about the relationship, 5 minutes a day. Most people I see, John, we're not even close to that.
Wow.
So ritual of connection. My wife and I have something we call yogurt time. Every night we share yogurt in bed and we just talk for 10 or 15 minutes. No TVs, no phone. We just talk. Like tonight, I'll probably talk about you and your wife. And I'll say, hey, his wife was an author and, I want to talk to her. And, like we'll talk about that. We'll connect. And she once said to me, never forget it. She said, yogurt time is the single most important thing to me in our relationship. So I've honored it every time. I will say this and confess to you the importance of yogurt time. If one of us is traveling for work and we don't have yogurt time, we'll talk on the phone or whatever. But if we don't have that yogurt time, I can bet money in Las Vegas we'll have a fight within 48 hours.
Wow.
I don't know why. It's just, I'll never forget. It was about 2 months ago. Talk about connection. We hadn't had a fight. And I literally looked at the time and I went upstairs and I said to my wife, you're not going to believe it. She said, what? And I said, it's been 48. She knew exactly what I was talking about. We never talked about that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was fascinating that, and I wish I could tell you why this conflict ever happens when we don't have this yogurt time, this little thing that's so important. And
Mm-hmm.
I have couples that go for a walk every night. They share morning coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Court, the same thing, that we get along a lot better when we have our yogurt time.
Yeah. And add into this day and age of swiping through electronics, of
right.
social media adds another layer to that, doesn't it?
Exactly. And I'll confess to you, there's really only one reason couples see me. And it's so simple. They actually want to be together. And they're not.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. And I don't know if you remember, I think it was Robin Williams' famous quote. I used to think the worst thing in the world was being alone. It's not. The worst thing in the world is being with someone who makes you feel alone.
Yeah.
So that was pretty powerful. And so, and again, like another Gottman term, bids for connection and how we recognize our partner's needs.
Mm-hmm.
It's great stuff.
It is. And I'm going to work on that now. You've inspired me. My wife and I think we have good communication, but I like the yogurt idea. That's a good one. Or whatever works. But actually, and do you do that at night?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and I don't know what kind of yogurt you eat, but they do say yogurt at night is really good for your system when you fall asleep. So,
oh wow,
I'm sure there's somebody out there that'll go, that's not true, but it's they say eating yogurt at night is actually really beneficial. Now, if it's got a bunch of sugar and stuff in it, that might be something else.
No, ours is Okius. It's 000, and I'll confess to you what I'm going to do after this, and I have it on my calendar. I'm calling the yogurt company that we have, and I'm sharing with them this idea of,
there you go.
Because literally couples, yeah, John, we have our yogurt time. It's working. It's good. So
we're not what's the name of the yogurt? Because I'm always looking for healthy stuff.
Oikos.
Oh yeah, that's what I have. We actually have.
Yeah,
that.
It's
just the plain,
yeah,
not the flavored, but
yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I just I throw frozen blueberries in it and do it.
Oh wow, okay. So,
yeah.
But and what's so cool about it is It's not, okay, Sherry, it's yogurt time. I embarrass myself. She's typically doing some work for next day upstairs, and I at 10:30, I like to watch Hogan's Heroes. And I
Mm-hmm.
watch Hogan's Heroes, and we don't even have to say it. She hears the closing credits and hears the refrigerator door open and knows it's automatic. We don't have to even say, come on, it's yogurt time. It's
Yeah.
a ritual of connection. It's great.
Yeah. I love watching those old shows
Oh,
too.
me too.
Yeah,
It's
because I
cool.
used to come home from school and watch them.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Gilligan's Island.
Yes.
Really dating myself too. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, Hogan's Heroes, what I
Get
think,
Smart. Get Smart was another.
one of my favorites.
With
Yeah.
Donna, yeah.
That's like when I think of Hogan's Heroes, a comedy about a prisoner of war camp in World War II.
Yeah.
I
My
couldn't.
dad was in World War II, and he was a combat veteran, and he would always get mad when we watched it
Oh,
because
wow.
he would say the Germans weren't that stupid. He said, and his ship had been hit by some German shells. So, but we would be like, Dad, leave us alone. We know we're not.
Yeah.
It's just a show.
Yeah.
Ironically, a lot of those actors in Hogan's Heroes were in World War II, which is kind of
Yes.
a,
Yeah.
So,
Good stuff.
well, John, I there's stuff I know we could keep going, but we're kind of wrap it up.
Okay.
I'd love to have you come back sometime and
Absolutely.
get into the rest of it because it just went by so fast.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to, on one condition.
Sure.
I can talk to your wife about an author because, very honestly, the company who published my book has been terrible.
Oh, okay.
So I'd like to see if I can get it transferred to another publisher.
Yeah, I'll definitely hook you up with her. She's had the challenges of that too. It's a like I said, if people don't know about being traditionally published, it's not a walk in the park
You're
anymore.
right. Exactly.
I was watching somebody the other day on a might have been a podcast. She had a New York Times best-selling book, and she said, "Do you know how much money I made from that? How much I netted? $400."
Oh, wow. Wow.
However, she said it did open a lot of doors for me to
Yeah.
go places and do things. So,
Yeah.
but writing is a great pursuit. Great creativity is a great regulator of the nervous system too, I think. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, let's do this again. And again, I will link all of John's social media and where you can find him. I think we got an email too.
Yeah. I gave you all that information if you need it.
Yeah. So we'll have that all on there. And again, I just really thank you today for being here, John, and doing this. It's been great.
Thank you, Jim. It really, I've enjoyed this. I use these from time to time, and I'll confess and say this is one of my favorites.
Awesome. Great.
Really.
Well, you take care and let's talk again.
You too. All right.
Thank you, John.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of Meet Your Mental Helper. I learned a lot. I hope you did too. If you'd like to learn more about our guest, you can find them on our guest directory at meetyourmentalhelper.com. You can find their social media links to follow them and also ways to directly contact them. If you would like to be on the podcast, join our Meet Your Mental Helper network. And we have several memberships that support the work we do that allow unknown experts to be seen. Look forward to hearing from you soon and see you at our next podcast.